Okay, so I'm sure that many of you are aware, so I don't need to provide the deep introduction into the risk, but just so we are on the same page, there are multiple types of risks that are coming with online platforms. We have risks for our democracy, and here there are two particular scenarios that we have in mind. One is foreign interference. So when there is a country, typical suspect, it's Russia, that is trying to influence elections in the European Union or in the US. We already know that this has happened on multiple occasions. So the problem is that outside actors can use social media to influence elections, for example. Another problem comes from biased algorithms. So this is not a third party that it's using online platforms to spread misinformation, but these are risks that are coming from the own algorithms of social media. And here we have the case of YouTube, and there was research saying that the recommendation algorithms put in place by YouTube led to the radicalization of Brazil because they were leading people to more and more extremist content. So different threat models. We also have risks for the mental health of children, teenagers, and not only. We have risks for the privacy of the users, and here there are the literature is talking about two different risks: identity disclosure and attribute disclosure. Identity disclosure is when someone is able to learn about the identities of people on other places that might be anonymous, and attribute disclosure is when, based on what we found, the information that users post, we can infer something more that is not publicly available. And then we also have financial and economic risks. Here again, one risk comes from fake reviews. This is something that we've been doing with Krishna more than 10 years ago, but I think it's still a problem. And the second problem is, again, biased algorithms that might promote some products over the others. So lots of different risks. So now if we sort of want to address these risks, what kind of studies we can do? So first types of studies is auditing studies. And here we want to understand how a platform works. And here the challenge is, for example, if you want to understand whether the recommendation algorithm of YouTube it's biasing the results in any given way, the challenge is how do you propose an experimental design to test this hypothesis, knowing that you don't have access to everything. So this is the scientific challenge. Then we have behavior analysis studies. So these systems are used by users and organizations, and one way to understand the risks is to understand how users are actually using these systems. And I'm going to provide some examples later in the talk. And here what we want to do is to have large-scale measurements that it's observing real users and real behaviors. Then we have the attack study. So this is like typical in a security and privacy community. You have a system and you're trying to see how you're going to be able to exploit it in order to make it do something that it's not supposed to do. And finally, we have the solutions. And here again, there can be of various types. They can be algorithms. Yeah, later I will talk about algorithms to detect the policy that a particular ad is talking about. This is one sort of solution. Then you have a system design. For example, some work that we did with Krishna many years ago is trying to see how to reinforce identity infrastructures, knowing that it's very easy to create identities on social media, and it's because of this easiness of creating identities that many of the problems are coming. So how do you design a system that has stronger identity infrastructure where you cannot create so easily new accounts? And the third one is something that I discovered while doing this research is regulations. So at least at the European Union, there is a willingness to enforce new regulations, but they lack evidence-based solutions. So once you are coming with something that is concrete, with a recommendation that it's backed by some scientific evidence, it's much easier to get the recommendation in the new legislation. And some of our recommendations are now included in the Digital Services Act and the European Democracy Action Plan because of we brought proof. Okay, so enough with the introduction. So now I wanted to go into some of our most recent work on misinformation exposure on social media. So this is not related to advertising, Ingmar. This is in the second part of the presentation, but this is like newer work on political advertising. It was a bit older work, so I prefer to start with the fresh things. So information exposure on social media. So this is a subject that it's very interdisciplinary, and social scientists have cornered these terms of selective news exposure and incidental news exposure to show how users get exposed to information. So selective news exposure is when someone goes to a web page that it's a publisher, it's a news media organization, and it selects what are the articles that they want to read. Now, on the other side, it's incidental news exposure, which is our news that you see when you go on the internet without searching for information. And this is the typical case on social media, that you go and you don't know what you're going to see there, but sometimes incidentally you see news exposure. And this incidental news exposure has become more and more prevalent, and more users are actually starting to get informed this way rather than going and selecting the information that they want to read. And a study from, it's quite recent, it's 2024, from Pew Research. This is the big company of doing these surveys, is saying that half of the US adults rely on social media as their main source for news. So it is important to look at incidental news exposure. And there are a bunch of worries with incidental news exposure. One is that it leads to the dissemination of misinformation more than selective news exposure. The second one is that it makes us be in filter bubbles, that we are only exposed to information that we agree with. And third, it facilitates coordinated influence campaigns. Yeah, so these are the risks. So now we would like to quantify them, to see to which extent they are, to which extent they are severe. So when we want to measure the news ecosystem, you can see it like on two sides. On one side, you have the news producer side. Yeah, there you have news organization, you have Twitter accounts. These are the people that are producing the news. And here you would like to detect what are the sources that are spreading misinformation, and you would also want to detect coordination, whether a bunch of sources are trying to have a coordinated campaign to influence the decision of some citizens. Now, on the consumer side, we would like to understand what is the exposure of and consumption of information and misinformation, and whether users are in filter bubbles. One of the classical, like if you take a random person on the street, how often do they see misinformation? And this we cannot see if we only looked at the producer side. We also need to look at the consumer side to understand a bit the impact of misinformation, spreading misinformation. Okay, so now if we look at the producer side, so one key problem here is that most research on misinformation, they are basing their research studies on a list of news outlets to monitor, and there are two typical sources for these news outlets: is NewsGuard and Media Bias Fact Check. And they cover about 5,000 news outlets. Mostly are in the US, some are in Europe, but again, they are not so many. The other thing is that we have, I don't know whether in Germany it exists, but in France there is this government agency called Viginum that is trying to see whether there is any misinformation related to the country. They want to detect foreign interference, and also secret services are kind of relying on a bunch of analysts that are watching every day social media and news, so that they are trying to detect whether there is something happening that it's worth looking into it. And again, they are relying on sources. They can be news domains, or they can be tip accounts on Twitter and Facebook that they are trying to monitor. Now, the problem is that we don't have like a fixed set of news media, and it's something that is ever evolving. And we have a bunch of evidence that attackers that try to influence elections and stuff, they are creating this sort of fake news media to either spread misinformation or just to spread opinions. So they are creating this news website. And now with generative AI, it's even worse, because it's very easy to create a news site that looks legitimate, but that is trying to convey some narrative that it's helping the attacker. So what we want is to have a method where we continuously identify and track news providers online and to discover them. And to do this, it's actually not very complicated, because we realize that to be a news provider on social media, you need to regularly post content that is related to current events. If not, you are not a news provider. So this is the base of our method to gather them up. So what we are doing, the way that we are instrumenting this, is that we go to the Google News API. So the Google News API gives you the headlines of the day. You can go in different countries and get the headlines in different countries of the most important events. We extract there the most important articles. From them, we extract keywords. And then we used to go to CrowdTangle, which is this API from Facebook, that it's allowing users and researchers to search for content. So with this keywords that we extracted from Google News, we search all the different posts that are talking about this event on Facebook. And we only limit to the past 24 hours. So we are doing this crawl daily. So every day we take the top news headlines, we go on Facebook, we search for all the posts that are talking about these news headlines. From them, we are extracting the Facebook pages that they are talking about them. And then we can make this distinction between two things. One is the self-proclaimed news providers. So these are Facebook pages that claim to be news providers because they put one of these categories in their about page. We also have de facto news providers that don't claim to be news providers. These are more, think of it of more of the influencers that don't claim to be news providers, but they talk about current events. Okay, and then from them we obtain this Facebook news pages, and then we are exploiting the Facebook ad library to get some more information about where do the administrators, the sysadmins of these accounts stay. So they don't need to, what we realized that they don't need to have ads to be able to assess this information. We can use the API even if they haven't posted that, just to get where is the country of origin of the people that are managing the page. So, and here we only filter out, for this study, we only filter out US-based, English-speaking Facebook news providers to be able to compare. So we did 2 deployments. One, we can do a live deployment in 2022, and we got 20,000 Facebook pages. But the beauty of this approach is that you can also do a retrospective discovery. So we went and we did the time around the elections in the US, and we got 22,000 Facebook pages. So now, what I want you to realize is that it's not like only a way to detect Facebook pages that are talking about news. It's also a way to actually go to the domains. Yeah, because the Facebook is just we take advantage that Facebook has these APIs. We can also go through TikTok. My student is trying now to go to TikTok. But what we want is to arrive at the actual news domains that are created. So from these 26,000 Facebook pages, we were able to extract 12,000 news domains. Yeah, and this is based on two ways. Either they verify their page and we can get their domain. Either we crawl all their posts from their whole history, and then we look at the top domains that they are sharing content from. And in case they are aggregators, I think we take like top 3 or something like this. Okay, so we got this these 12,000 domains. So the question is this like a good enough method to be able to discover news providers? And here what I'm plotting is that it's every day and it's the cumulative number of pages that we find. And in green we have the pages that are known from Media Bias Fact Check and NewsGuard together. And here in blue they are the pages that we discover more. So first thing you can see is that at the end, we detect much more than what is currently known. We also detect 95% of the pages from NewsGuard. The ones that we didn't detect is because they were not posting during that time. Sometimes they labeled and they review news organization, but they are not active. And the other thing, what we see is like the beginning in the first week or so, we have a high discovery rate. And after a month, the discovery rate, it's lower. Just to get an idea that if we do this for 1 month, we can have a pretty good coverage, still knowing that we don't have a ground truth of the coverage. We don't know how far we can go, but it looks pretty satisfactory for now. So just a quick analysis of the data. First typical thing, it's engagement, how many followers the pages have, and as expected, if you look at pages that are covered by Media Bias Fact Check and NewsGuard, we have much more followers per page than if we look at our list that we discovered. But if we look overall, like total amount of followers of these guys here that have been reviewed and total amount of followers for this guy, we can see that it's more. So whenever you are doing this research study, it's important to also analyze this very long tail of news organization because it accounts for more than half of followers. And here it's about half of the engagement generated related to news. So it is important to take them into account. The second thing we look is the affiliation, and here was mostly to drive the point that how limited are Media Bias Fact Check and NewsGuard evaluations. So here we have, these are different organizations, and these are the number of Facebook pages that are rated by Media Bias Fact Check and NewsGuard. And these are the other pages. So our point was, look, even for the organization that they know that they are there, they are not covering every single related pages, and you have some quite big numbers that number of pages that are not covered. Okay, and now what we are trying to do, and we started to do last summer, is that we wanted to build the largest database of news providers across the world. We started with Europe, here, and Brazil. Here are the numbers of of news domain, not Facebook, news domain that we gather in different countries. Like France is 2,000, about 2,000, and the official list are 894. Germany, 1,050. Well, this and some others have much less. Anyway, currently there is no database. So most of research is focusing on the US because in the US we have data available, and other countries we don't have. And it's very, even for France, I spent months of trying to understand what are the official news providers, because NewsGuard was only having 10 domains. So Yes, hopefully we've applied now for the meta content library. We haven't got access yet, but once we have, we are going to start this crawl to gather more countries. And for now, we published the sources that we have so far, but the plan is to crawl for and do everything in the world, 2025.
Maybe one good, I mean, do you need, so if your goal is to detect ultimately news websites that are on the web, not just on Facebook
Yeah.
or so, do you need Facebook? Or I could imagine you just go to Google and search News Germany or run the headline through sort of Google.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need Facebook. So my student is trying TikTok now, to go through TikTok. Facebook was a pretty good source because of the APIs, but you can, yes, go to Google search. I'm not sure to which extent it has an API that you can use. And you need to have an API and you need to have enough rate limits to be able to crawl all the different. So yes, the TikTok API, it's just enough for a country. So it's possible with some the creation of some account. Okay. So then let's move to this kind of second part of this study and the detection of coordinated influence campaigns. So this is becoming a very big problem, and I'm not sure whether you know, but Romania cancelled elections because of supposed foreign interference. Now I looked at the official documents, and I cannot say that I'm convinced whether it happened or not. Or no, it happened, but whether the extent of the campaign is enough to cancel election, this is something that we are currently trying to look into it and see whether we can retrieve what the Romanian government retrieved. Anyway, this is, yes, we will see. But before that, when we did this crawl of this news discovery project, we realized that here we plotted the time when the pages were created. And this is again in the US, only US pages. And you can see like these nice peaks, and they all correlate with elections. So the question is, given our data set, can we detect any coordination between these 12,000 domains that we identify? And the way we went about this, it's not straightforward, but I'm trying to simplify things. So programmatic advertising, it's advertising that is done on the open web. Like you have, I don't know what are some known news medias in Germany, like New York Times, this everyone knows. It's not advertising on Facebook, it's not advertising on Google products, but it's advertising on the web. And it's also called programmatic advertising. It's very complicated. I think it took me years until I finally figured it out how everything works. So my goal is not to explain everything, but the only thing that I want you to realize is that here we have publishers. These are news media organizations. So whenever someone visits this publisher, there is an ad opportunity that it's sent to the network, to some very complex things, so that advertisers on this site can bid on this placement. Now, we have this, who's hosting the bidding system are all these intermediaries. And there was a big problem about ad fraud. So what was happening is that you had these intermediaries somewhere in between that was announcing, oh, I have a place for an ad on New York Times. But they didn't have any contract with New York Times. So they were just gaining money and showing ads on random websites. And because the system is so complicated, it's very hard to detect this type of fraud. So the Internet Advertising Bureau said, okay, we need to do something. So their solution was that publishers need to put a file that is called ads.txt, where they need to mark all the different suppliers that are allowed to sell their inventory. So now an advertiser, when he receives, oh, I have an ad placement on New York Times, he's looking at this and see whether this intermediary actually has the right to sell the ads here. So why is this interesting is that beside having the organizations that are allowed to sell ads, we also have the identifier of the publisher in this ad network. Yeah, so to be able, when you want to advertise with Google or Amazon or others, you're creating a publisher account. And in this ads.text, you are putting, oh, this is my identifier in this, for this supplier. So I think you can see where I'm going. It's like whenever you have multiple publishers that have similar identifiers in similar exchanges, you can group them together because you know that they created, they are somehow managed by the same organization. Yeah, so it's just a way of trying to find a common identifier. Now, the nice thing about this related with, you could do some NLP techniques to see whether the content is similar or not, but you don't have concrete proof that they are organized together because it's only content. Here you know that there is one person that created both accounts, so you can have a more a stronger proof of coordination. Now, I'm not talking, it's coordination, but I'm not, you can cluster together also news organizations that are legitimately managed by the same organization. So we are not let's say this method, it's not detecting coordination, but it's detecting publishers that are managed by the same organization. Okay, so we found this ads, not everyone is implementing it. It's only 4,000 domains that are implementing this, this standard. Now there is a whole other question, what are the other news websites doing if they are not advertising, because this is suspicious on its own. What is their revenue models? And we had different thresholds on the similarity of the identifiers. So there are some noisiness, publishers are forgetting to update stuff. It's not so as pretty as we would like, so we need to do some fuzzy clustering. Yes, if we require 100% similarity, we got some 691 clusters. So what does a high similarity mean? It might mean that instead of having one big cluster of coordination, we have multiple ones because we are very, very strict. Okay, so is our clustering valid? This is like the biggest question. And there is not a lot of ground truth information, but we do have the declare organization on Facebook of some, I showed you before that some of the organizations declare this, some Facebook pages declare a news organization. So what we looked is like, is our cluster, one cluster that we detect here, included in this cluster? Or does it correspond to two clusters? This would be bad. And we have like a 90% match. Knowing that even the 10% here in the declaration, there might be problems as well because they are updating and publisher change. Anyway, what I'm saying is that from this perspective of this limited ground truth, we have a quite a high accuracy in detecting clusters. So what cluster we identify? So here are just some cluster where in bold are domains that NewsGuard and Media Bias Fact Check have labeled as spreading misinformation in a repeated manner. And the ones that are not in bold are the domains that are not reviewed by these news organizations. So just to point that managed by the same organization, there might be other interesting domains that we should look at. Now, I'm not a journalist. I don't know whether they are spreading misinformation or not, but this is a potential interesting information for fact checkers to look at. Okay, and then there are many other clusters. Again, I just copied some of the clusters in the train today. I don't know whether they are legitimate or not, but this was our first step in trying to link them together somehow, and now we would need to see whether we can add other methods to detect whether all these, I don't know, whether all these websites are trying to portray the same narrative over a particular problem. I don't know, it can go in different directions, this line of work.
Would you get any information from who is the information, or that is too sparse, or like, you know, sort of just like domain registration information?
So the domain registration, I think it's more and more obfuscated because of, I think GDPR, they are allowed to obfuscate everything, and I heard that it's less and less useful. Yes, but maybe just getting the IP, that would be also extra information. I have some interns that are coming that are looking at analytics scripts. So showing ads is one thing, but another thing is when we have analytics software. So this we are also going to see whether we have some identifiers. Yes, trying to get pieces of information to put together and see how powerful this will be at the end. Okay, so this was the first part, and now I'm going to move to the consumer side. So if there are any questions maybe on this first part, now would be a good time, because then we go on different things. Okay, so I will just continue. Yes, what we wanted to understand in this work is like how do people get informed, and the biggest problem is that we don't have access to data. We don't know what people see in their Facebook and TikTok and YouTube profiles when we go there. And for this, we developed this measurement approach based on donation of personal data to science. So this is something that we actually started in 2015. I think I applied for a research grant from Data Transparency Lab to build the first version of this tool. So what it is, it's a browser extension that users can install on their computer, and it's able to observe what users see. And we instrumented initially to only collect the ads people are seeing, because this is what we were interested in. But in the second iteration of this, we said we want to extend it more to understand what news people are seeing as well. So we are not collecting all the posts and everything that users are seeing, but we have a whitelist that it's sort of based on the previous news discovery, where we are collecting all the public posts that users are seeing, plus private posts that are coming from one of the domains that we listed before. We don't collect who posted it, but we collected that the user saw a post about this article. And we don't want to collect information from friends. So we are just collecting that this post was visible, and we also collect information about how users interact with the content, whether they share, whether they comment, without actually collecting the precise comment of the user. Okay, and we did these two campaigns, one in 2018 in Brazil and one in 2020 in the US. So first question, exposure to fake news, and we wanted to see how much disinformation users actually see when they browse on Facebook. And I realized that this is in French. So if we look over the 900 users that we were able to recruit in France, 63% of the posts are coming from sources known to have factual content. So this is at source level. It's a labeling at source level, not at individual post level. So this is pretty high. And then we have 5% that are coming from sources that are known for repeatedly spreading misinformation. Again, doesn't mean that 5% is misinformation, because even these sources sometimes have legitimate content. But just to have, I mean, this is the best that we can do now, have labeling at source level, because labeling at post level, it's quite hard. And it's not something that researchers are able to do with a high accuracy, link a post with some known fact-checked information. It can, but it's not precise enough. And these are sort of mixed reviews or unlabeled things. Now, whether this is a lot or not a lot, I don't know. I think the more interesting thing would be to see how it evolves, so that we see in which direction we are going. And something that it's interesting for organizations. They are doing a lot of effort to tackle disinformation, and the way that they focus is media literacy. So they would like to compare a country where there is no effort in media literacy with a country that you have effort in media literacy, and see whether this exposure to misinformation is changing. And they were interested in deploying this tool, but now they are afraid because of Trump, and they don't know what are their priorities now. Anyway, okay, so this is one thing. Now, again, we see that there is exposure to misinformation, but to be able to do something concrete, we want to understand what are the underlying mechanisms that are responsible for a user seeing an ad, and this can be of different things, different types. So first we have selective. This is when a user is seeing a misinformation post because he is selected to follow a source that is known for spreading misinformation. The second one is network. This post is coming from friends. Third is this post is coming from algorithms. And third, this post has been targeted through advertising to him. So, and this distinction is important because we seem to bunch everything together, saying, oh, the algorithms are responsible for spreading more misinformation, but actually even in social media there are different mechanisms through which misinformation can appear. And if you have a huge targeting campaign with misinformation, you need to implement different measures than if it's selective. And if it's selective, you want to instruct users not to follow misinformation. If it's targeted, you want to have maybe some more content verification on this advertising. So what we saw is that if we look at the fraction, if we only take all the selective posts, what fraction is misinformation? If we take all the network-related posts, what fraction is misinformation? So we see this as a fraction of the total. We have more misinformation in the selective exposure. So sort of people are more likely to see misinformation because they choose to follow the sources rather than being exposed because of targeted advertising. Now, they are pretty similar, but it's still interesting to know that selective it's a bit higher than the rest. And we need to have a more balanced and nuanced understanding, so that don't just blame algorithms.
So just to understand the numbers, I mean, if I understood correctly, those were sort of conditional probabilities, right? Sort of conditional.
Yes.
Sort of
yeah. So they don't account for 100 like this.
No.
Selective and network, they are pretty similar in prevalence as well.
I see. Okay.
I wanted to add another line,
sure.
But my student was not not reachable this morning.
Okay, sure.
But yes, if you look at overall misinformation received by a user, it would be selective and network that would have a higher prevalence, and algorithms and targeted lower because there are a lower number of posts that are coming from these sources. Okay, then we went and we asked the question, do filter bubble exist? And here there are multiple measures of measuring a filter bubble. One is balance, and means that some users had received at least one. Yes, each side of political spectrum represents 1/3 of a news diet. So if we take all the news posts and we label them whether left-leaning, right-leaning, balance means that 1/3 of the posts are from either side in the US. And here we see that if we only looked at selective news, meaning like the news that people choose to follow, it's only 13% that have a balanced data set, balanced news diet, and if we take into account all the news, you have more users that have balanced diet, so it does go in what online platforms are saying is that algorithms are exposing users to more diverse news content. Now, personally, I think these measures of filter bubbles don't capture much because, okay, at very population level, you do see some balance, but this doesn't mean that individual groups of people are in a filter bubble. So one is that I think that it's more on a group level, and if you just randomly sample everyone, you won't see much. And the second thing, I think filter bubbles are more related to individual topics rather than sites. So people might not be aware of something that is happening. They are in a filter bubble that they don't know about what Trump is doing to immigrants or something. So it's more, I think there might be more thematic. But anyway, these are the typical metrics used in the literature, so we just evaluated them. Okay, so the next one thing was, what is the user behavior? And the first question that we had is like, do users check the information before they share it? And here what we see is that users only read, meaning click, 14% of the articles that they share on social media. So the majority of the users are deciding to share something just by seeing the title and maybe the short description of an article that they see on social media. So this is interesting to know as well. And the last thing that we wanted to see is whether users engage with content from opposing political views. So here is like how Democrats engage with left-leaning sources, how Democrats engage with right-leaning sources, and here's how Republicans engage. So now, if we look at engagement that is visible to the social circle of the users, we see, like previous works, that they are more likely to share or like something that is coming from their own political leaning than if something that is coming from the other spectrum. But what we found out is that if we look at hidden engagement, meaning like users click and actually read the article, this provides us with another picture, because you can see here that users are more likely to actually investigate and click on the content from the other political side. At least, so they are willing, in a sense, they are willing to engage with opposing view as long as it is in a private manner. This is what we think that is happening. So this was it was surprising for us. I didn't expect this, and it's somehow positive as well that we see this engagement with the opposing view. Okay, so political micro-targeting. Again, the reason, so this is a bunch of works that I did on advertising and political advertising, and the reason why advertising technologies pose a big threat to our society is because they enable information targeting. So you have one advertiser that is able to create one version of his ad that is specifically designed for and targeted at people who are interested in alternative medicine, and they can create and target another version of the ad that is for Republicans. So these advertising systems have been developed to make people, to send ads to people that are interested in shoes, in sports for shoes. But the same system is now exploited to send information, and it hasn't been designed for this. So what happens is that ads technology enables everyone, because it's very easy to create and be an advertiser, to use users' personal data to manipulate them. And so this is why we have this very big threat that is enabled by advertising. And again, this can go beyond disinformation, because you can weaponize truthful information or opinions in a way that can change someone's perspective on some problem through advertising. So the question that we started to ask is what safeguards we can implement. And first was transparency. And this is what Meta implemented after the 2016 election. They put in place this Meta ad library that was containing all the political ads on the platform. So our question was, how many political ads are missing from the ad library, because we don't have any information about what they are putting there or not. And here we use the measurement methodology that I presented you before, that we collected ads from users, and we built a political ad detector, nothing fancy. It was 2020, we didn't have LLMs. Anyway, we had quite a good accuracy, and what we discovered is that half of the political ads we detected were missing from the political ad library in Brazil during the presidential election. And I thought that this is so crazy that I asked 3 students to manually verify every single ad and tell me whether it's actually very political or not, and all of them were very political. So this was quite problematic, because the transparency mechanisms that are allowing us to actually understand what is happening are missing half of the picture. So what we did is that we, armed with this evidence, we went to the European Commission, and at that point they were building the Digital Services Act, and we say we need transparency for all the ads that are running on the platform, not only political ads, because they are doing such a bad job at labeling political ads. And now this is Article 39. So this paper actually was heard and had an impact on current law. So now we do have these ad libraries that contain all the ads. Now, the second question was about restrictions. We want to have restriction on political ads related to micro-targeting mainly. But the question was that everyone at that point was making the assumption that we can distinguish very well political ads from the rest. So in the previous study, we said that I show you that we can detect much more political ads than Facebook, but I never said that we can detect all the political ads. And if you want to have a legislation that you can put it and enforce it in practice, you need to understand, can we apply it? Can we actually apply it? And here we did this study where we analyzed whether people agree or not on what ads are political. And here we have a data set of 55,000 ads. All the ads had at least 3 labels, and at least one of them was saying that this is a political ad. And we can see here that people disagree on more than 50% of the ads. So now the question is, how can you build a system where...
And what is everyone? I mean, how many annotators sort of or so?
3 or more.
3 or more, okay. Because of course, as you go to n equals infinity, then of course one. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. I don't remember what whether you're right to point. I don't know whether we randomly just picked 3. I don't remember. But this is a good point. But anyway, it was not much more than 3. Anyway, so hard to apply legislation. So we wanted to understand why do people disagree, and here you need to. There are 2 types of political ads. One is the ads that are talking about candidates or ads from candidates or for political parties. Everyone agrees that they are political, nothing to worry there. But there is the second category of ads about social issues that don't mention any political candidate, that people are getting very confused. And in this space, you can have ads that are more on the advocacy. They really want to change policy, so you would like to have them labeled as political, but you also have humanitarian ads. And it's really hard at language level to distinguish between something that is a social issue but it has a humanitarian scope, and something that is a social issue and that has an advocacy scope. So we don't have a really good solution. What we suggested is that they should have a definition based on the intent of the advertiser. Did the advertisers it's intending or could potentially influence election? We felt like this, in the longer term, it's a definition that can be better cover what is happening, and now the latest version does have this definition of political ads in it. Okay, so this is a study where we...
maybe that's a good point to
stop
there.
Okay.
Great. So let's thank you, Oana.